All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends. My name is David Oualaalou. So good to be with you as always. I am doing a follow up on the video that I just released about the U.S. agreement with none other than Papua New Guinea, known as PNG. So before I do all this, like I always do, I like to extend my thanks to the channel's members and supporters, and I'm going to give a shout out to two new members. The first one is Tommy B. Thank you very much for becoming a channel's member. I truly appreciate it. Second person is Hattie K. Call. It's Koh. Hattie Call. Thank you so much for both of you guys for becoming channel's members. So now we are at a 42. We have a few more to go to reach that 100 number. So if you are interested in becoming a channel's members, please do so. Join the channel members at the link in the description that is always there. So, and I appreciate all of you. So, all right, what we're going to be talking about today. Today we're going to be talking about PNG. I'm just going to say PNG. It's Papua New Guinea. So from now on, just say PNG. So is PNG being used like the Philippines? Yeah, that is the question we need to ask. Second one is, why the deal was kept secret? That's another question. If you as a country to go into agreement with, shouldn't you be transparent about it? Unless there is some clauses into the agreement that have not been made public. Okay. And third question, who's really the target? Really, think about it. Look at geography. And I'm going to share a picture with you here just for you to see. Oh, where is my picture? Here's my picture right here. Look at this one, guys. What are we looking at? You got it. Indonesia. So, and I'm going to tell you why as we move forward into all this. So today I'm not doing the health tip, by the way, because I didn't have enough time to prepare. I don't like just to talk on the top of my head. I like to make sure I validate what I share with you with facts. So, the one thing I'll share with you is a tour around the world for only two main items. One of them has to do with the talks today, they're taking place today between Russia and Gulf State, GCC. Yeah, they are cooperative. So this is why you're seeing the shift from Saudi Arabia, for example, to China, United Arab Emirates, even Qatar. It's not even, but Qatar has considered extending its contract beside what it's already had with China for 27 years. They didn't take the request from Europe for gas, but they moved to China. And all this is an indication where things are headed. So they are meeting. As a matter of fact, the meeting, I believe, conducted because right now is about 8 p.m., 9 p.m. in the Middle East. So they probably concluded the conversation. But what's interesting about it is it's the sixth round, not the first time, sixth round of the strategic dialogue between Russia and the Gulf Cooperation Council, known as GCC. And the second key topic, I don't have a picture for it, is the NATO summit that's going to start tomorrow for about 2 days, from 11 through the 12th in Vilnius, Lithuania. I'll be talking about it probably most likely tomorrow in a live stream on the big channel. So very interesting. You might want to literally join in that conversation because I will be talking about some 3 key issues pertaining to NATO summit, and you need to know about this one. So let's and again, before I'll delve deeper here, make sure to type in where you are joining me from. And like I always say, I always like doing that. So hello Alex, hello to you as well. So hi Boone, good to see you. Boone from Berlin, originally from Malaysia. Boone is a channel member's been since we started. So thank you, Boone. Jan Hokor from Malaysia. Good to have you as always. So let's talk about this topic here, guys, and I'll check this later on. So I'm going to start with one word. And the one word is encirclement. A policy, if you will. Does it work? So, of course, this PNG deal came up to the surface. That's been in the works for about a month. So it was held in secret. No. And so when the information start to emerge about it, it's kind of like, okay, how come when China had its deal with Cambodia, we consider it very, very bad, and now we had the deal with PNG. Oh, it's okay. This is what I say. I always say this about the double standards in our foreign policy, because that exemplify the double standards of it. But here's the thing. The one thing that, and I do read up a lot on foreign policy, it's part of my academic background. I have to keep myself informed and educated about the topics. So I go back to 2022 to the National Defense Authorization Act, known as NDAA. Interesting enough that if you read that, you will find two key things or two key words that are not included. One of them is encirclement does not exist in the text. Okay? And the other word is containment does not exist in the word. My argument for that is, which I made that argument a few years ago, before 2022, that the idea of containing China, in this case, it's useless. It won't work. China is not the Soviet Union back then. So the containment won't work. That's why it wasn't. Let me see if I can get you guys the link and you can read up. Yeah, I do have the link for it here for you. So I'm going to share it with you and you can read it later on. So the Defense Policy Act. And usually I keep all this stuff for my own reading, for my own stuff, because that's how I keep up with what's going on around the world. So and that was before President Biden, Uncle Joe, signed it into a law back in December 27, 2022. So, and the thing is that the statement about the foreign policy and the military policies of the United States, it did not reflect that in the statement, nor does the classic, here's the key word, the classic Cold War era term containment was not there. That's what I'm saying. It never came up. So why am I saying all this? Of course, because the US has to term the policy basically of the strategy to encircle and contain China's emerging power. So this is the reason why they use the term. But here I'm not going to talk about this one. What I'm going to talk about, the action that now the US got to deal with PNG, Papua New Guinea, as to the military. What will be the purpose of it? So why? And again, that's another word, that's another approach to encirclement, just in a different setting. So this is the reason why you have to understand, and I couldn't wait to do the video for you guys and for you to be aware of of what's going on. So now, the idea of encircling China, and again, you look at the map here. There are certain waterways. Those waterways have a major economic impact. And by the way, won't be just China that will be impacted in case of a blockade, because China will react to that. There is no doubt about it, because it's survival, economy at stake. So Philippines is going to be impacted, South Korea is going to be impacted, Philippines, and any other country in between. That's why I see this deal for how PNG was able to be this subversive. I wonder, what are they getting for it? Of course, it's going to be some economic aid, but that's not that. It's what the members inside the government of PNG will be getting behind closed doors. That's where the key to all this, and why this has happened. Because it can happen in a vacuum just because they said so. So that is where I see the challenge. So the idea of the encirclement, of adding more military hardware, more bases, till when? So because basically that's how China is going to interpret that. I mean, we will if we're starting to see so many presence here in the US, or just near the US border. So, and I'm going to share with you a picture here that you might find very interesting. Let me get it out the screen first. Yeah, I'll give you just an example. Check this out, guys. Present, share the screen with you right there. Yeah, check this out. Yeah, this one here has an idea of countries in Africa. Out of the 54, we do have a deal with 53 countries in Africa. Hey, I'm seeing the patterns. That's the reason why I'm saying this, because that's what I'm looking at here, is the pattern. So the same thing for all of a sudden PNG will turn over, because basically what PNG is doing is turning over its sovereignty quietly. It's no different than what Australia did. So that is where the issue is. But there is the big elephant into all this, as to why I wanted to do this for you guys as an extent. And there are some of you, some members in the community, that they put the comments, said, yeah, please do an extension or more conversation regarding this issue. Because there is a much bigger picture. Yes, China is one of the whole objective of why the US is doing this. But there is also Indonesia. Yeah, Indonesia is also the target for that long term. And I'm going to get into the history of PNG and Indonesia. There is a lot of history into it. Briefly, I can't, because it will take me hours, as you guys know. You can't sift through this in a few minutes, but at least I'll provide you a framework to put this in perspective. This is what most of us here in the US are not aware of, the historical aspects of how things have been, how they emerged, and how they are today. Because the historical aspects play a role into this. And I'll get into that in a minute here. So why Indonesia? Now, in your opinion, why do you think Indonesia will be the target long term? So if you can leave me an answer, because I want to engage you intellectually, that is, because that's how my live streams are, in a conversation, guys. No more, no less. So why do you think Indonesia will be the target in a long term, if you ever think that? I know it's all, when you look at the big picture, you say, oh, it's for encircling China. Makes sense. And it is to a degree. But in the case of, if you are thinking Indonesia is the target long term, why do you think that is, in your opinion? Let me see if any of you can put some answers here, just to see. And I know it takes a while. It takes a while before the answer shows up here. But hi, Jack Robert. Good to see you. It's a civilizational maturity process. Okay. And I'm just looking at Wu. Good to see you, as always. Yeah, if you guys can leave an answer there, and I'll get back to it. So I can keep going in the conversation here. So the idea of Indonesia, we all know where it stands regarding the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And also, this comes in during a time, you remember back then, Indonesia had to host the G20, and they made it clear that they will invite Russia, and they did. So it's because Indonesia is a sovereign state. That's one. Second thing, is the host of the G7, which means they have the say as to who they invite and who they don't, if they don't want to. And third, no other country can dictate the terms to them, because I don't see Indonesia allowing itself to be dragged into that setting like Australia, like South Korea, like Philippines, like Japan, and now PNG, Papua New Guinea. Because that's what it will be. So that is the idea, because Indonesia has made it clear at that time, and still to a degree, that will remain neutral, and not side with any party regarding this ongoing conflict, which, by the way, we in the West are fomenting it by design. This issue could have been resolved way back. This issue, the conflict that is, shouldn't even be happening to begin with, hadn't we not expanded eastward and kept pushing the Russians to the corner. Why lie about it? Why pretend otherwise when we created that? So, mark my word, tomorrow at the NATO summit, what do you think is going to be on the agenda? How can we push even further? You look at the weak European leaderships are already signing up checks for next year. This is why, be on the lookout for a video. I'm going to release it for you guys. One leader in Europe, Viktor Orban of Hungary, Prime Minister, said, no, I'm not going to give money. For what? The people of Hungary comes first, and rightly so. The rest of them, Germany, France, UK, even UK is not an EU member, all of the rest, Spain, Portugal, Italy, they're all weak. They're weak beyond the belief. So that is the reason why. So the conflict, we're creating it, and we are pushing. I mean, look just what we just did 2 days ago. The President of the United States, President Uncle Joe, just agreed to allow the cluster bombs. They are banned. So what does it say to the world? We can't even hold our end of the bargain regarding international agreements. Where that leaves us? Where is the credibility? We got none. We shouldn't be talking about international law and the rule of law and human rights and democracy. Come on, you call spade a spade. You can't be behaving like this on the international stage and expect respect. But again, you look at who is formulating, strategizing, and delivering the so-called foreign policy strategy. What we don't have? None. Zero. It's because we don't have well-established, well-qualified individuals who have an in-depth of what international affairs and geopolitics is all about, let alone how you're going to communicate with other countries. That's, to me, the hypocrisy at the highest order. We are telling the rest of the world we're going to ban cluster bombs. We turn around and be sending them to Ukraine. I mean, I'm a loss of words. Just what would I call it beside hypocrisy? Yeah, I don't know. It's embarrassing for me as an American. No, that my government, which I care less for, never trust the government anyway, that it will be behaving like this on the global stage. And once again, it's because we have amateurs in Washington that deciding on the fate of our country. So how can you even do that? So this is part of where I see the big, to go back to why the U.S. got a deal with PNG. Oh, by the way, guys, I'm assuming the sound is working because I didn't see any. Let me make sure. I learned my lesson. So, yeah, if you give me a thumbs up, please, if the sound is good and working. All right, I'm assuming it's working. So perfect. Let's just keep going here till I see a sign or something. So the idea of Indonesia working. Thank you so much, Fox. Appreciate it. So the idea of it's working is because We got upset because they took a stand. Well, they took a stand because they want to be neutral. And that is, by the way, what some of you, let me see your answers here on the chat box, because they are coming, the answers coming back up here about the question I asked you. Yeah, Indonesia won't turn. James O'Hara, Indonesia won't turn against China. The reason is simple. It's a Muslim country. After seeing all the things the US has done, and I'm going to share it with you guys here. Seeing the US has done to Muslims, it will be unthinkable for Indonesia to follow the US order. Logical arguments. Logical arguments. So the idea of why Indonesia will go that way, it's because they wanted to maintain their neutrality, but also the way I look at it, because if you read the text of the agreement, which I disclosed in the video, if you didn't watch the video yet, please go and watch that video. I just released it this morning. It was one key term. One key term is about the unlimited, and I'm paraphrasing here, the unlimited access to this base. What do you think we're going to do when you have in the agreement unlimited access to equipment and so forth? You can read between the lines. You don't have to be geopolitical analyst to realize, oh, I wonder what do they mean by that. What they mean basically is we can bring any type of weapon we would like to. And that's usually when you see something like this, that's usually when you realize the host country, whoever that might be, has no sovereignty anymore. I'll give you a quick examples. Australia, South Korea, Japan, Canada, Philippines. I'm seeing the Philippines now. I'm becoming more convinced. I was having a question mark about Philippines because I said, well, Marcos Jr. is going to embark on a policy. Yes, he needs to maintain his alliances, security, whatever he wants to call it. But at the same time, he will work on behalf of the Filipino people that deserve better. And I didn't want to jump to conclusions saying, no, give a guy time to see how he's going to manage. And it turns out as weak as he can be. Why? Pressured or otherwise, it's irrelevant at this point because he showed his true color. So in this case, Philippines, I don't see the sovereignty of Philippines anymore. Even India, which, by the way, I am confirming one specific information for you, and I am going to do a video for you about this. India is going to have, listen carefully, India is about to have the same deal that PNG, Papua New Guinea, had with the United States. So India and the United States just cut a deal behind the scenes by which the US will fix the naval assets in India. You all know what it means. Yeah, it was quiet. That was during the visit of the Prime Minister Modi. That's why I was saying back then, was he invited or was he summoned? And I'm leaning towards the latter. So I'm waiting to confirm one particular information, and I will do the video for you guys. And that one will be worth doing in a live stream because there is a lot to cover. India, it's becoming clear to me. It's going to be the hindrance to the progress of BRICS because India just now contradicted Russia about saying that BRICS is moving forward with the new currency backed by gold. India is saying, no. We want to consider rupees. Hold on a second. Since when? And who's going to be trading in rupees? Come on. This is what I'm starting to see, the problems that's going to emerge within BRICS as it grows. There are those who are saying maybe India shouldn't be part of the BRICS to begin with. It's kind of too late for that. What do you guys think? So just to go back to our topic about Indonesia within this big picture of the U.S. military agreement with PNG, Papua New Guinea. So, because Indonesia has been faced with a very, very delicate situation here, or facing, if I may use the term, facing delicate situation as far as as far as either support for Ukraine because the U.S. and so forth, or the imposition of sanctions on Russia. And I have a picture here I want to share with you guys. Right there. This is from a visit from a European delegation that's visited Indonesia back then, trying to convince India to move along with the European, US, or the West position. But India said, no, we don't want to sanction Russia. Interesting enough, as part of ASEAN, I found it very surprising that Singapore, as neutral as Singapore you may think, went ahead and sanctioned Russia. Was it pressured? Or Singapore presenting an image that is not real and true to itself? I'm just putting this out there. I'm not judging. So it is another image for President Widodo met with this is what happened. It happened on if I am to recall, I think March 22, somewhere around that time. That's when it happens. So that's what I found very, very interesting. Yes, of course, Indonesia saying, well, we remain in the position to support peace and resist all form of violence by any party. But I think given the history between Papua New Guinea way back and Indonesia, because a lot of people do not know how close those countries were back then. As a matter of fact, some of individuals in Papua New Guinea traces their roots back to Indonesia, based on what I read. And I'm going to share some with you here. So, yeah, that's, by the way, this image here, guys, this one here, this was the visit by the European ambassador to Asia in that part of the world, because they wanted to discuss with Indonesia ways of ensuring their support as far as condemning the Russians and so forth. So European Union, basically, that ambassador there, asked Indonesia to use its influence on the bear of 2022 during the summit. Yeah, that's the G20, because Indonesia was holding the presidency of the G20 summit. So basically, why the ambassador came over to Indonesia is to pressure it to use its position. And again, makes me just wonder why Singapore end up moving forward with imposing sanctions. That's what I don't understand. I'm really perplexed by Singapore's decision to go ahead and doesn't matter the level of sanctions, small or large, whatever, it won't matter. The fact that they embarked on sanctions, that tells me a lot. Now, what you're gonna be seeing with now the deal between the United States and PNG is like sort of, I mean, it's common sense. PNG needs to get it into its psychic that from now on, we're going to take over certain political decisions, no matter what they say. And given its tensions with Indonesia, we will most likely see an uptick into that somehow. And I remember, I think I remember reading Jack. It was you, Jack Robert, that you put a comment pertaining to something like this. I remember reading, if my memory serves me well. So you can just see, because Indonesia thinking in terms of economics with China. And all of a sudden, and this is where I see really an upcoming issue for India for allowing itself now to become the backyard for naval assets of the US to be sort of maintained in India. We all know what it means, And this, once again, I'm just as geopolitical analyst, I can just see it like a clear day that India is going to become the really, really, really weak link. It is already the weak link inside BRICS and could hinder BRICS from moving forward. So many countries now wants to join BRICS. You're talking about the global south. And there are some reports that I read here in Washington. They're writing about how India now is the spokesperson for global south. Hold on a second. No. We shouldn't be just throwing words out there. That's like saying India is going to become a superpower. That's nonsense. And again, I have nothing against India. I'm stating the facts. Be on the lookout for a video I just did about this, an analysis about it on the big channel. And I detailed why. India will not be a superpower. It can't. I mean, you look at just with this. Do they understand what are they getting into with the US? I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. So it was another comment, if I am to recall, because this is a reason, guys, why I read your comments. It's very, very important. Later on, somebody put a comment that what I talked about in a recorded video is fake news. Please refrain from talking that nonsense, or just get out of our community altogether. I don't shy away from that kind of stuff because I don't present lies. I don't. I spend days searching for the information and confirming it. So for this person to just throw a statement like this, it tells me the intellectual level. So do me and do the community a favor by getting out. Simple as it is. So the idea, another good comment that I recall was the idea of some individuals inside PNG are not in favor of this defense act or agreement between PNG and the US. Yeah, because that leads me to ask the question. So the individuals inside the government, I mean, Peter O'Neill was against it. He knew why. But there are some other elements inside the government, in PNG that is, that were in support of that. This is why it was made secret. It wasn't revealed. It was after the fact that it signed, approved, and everything. I mean, heck, President Biden was about to go there to show, because anytime U.S. president travels somewhere, the world we know about, it's optics. The moment that deal was sealed, the trip was canceled. So this is why the agreements, in my opinion, there is no way that PNG government people will not know what are they getting into. It's going to undermine their own sovereignty. There is no other way around it. That's just common sense. So if they think they're going to have a say, look, you will think they will learn. Look what Australia. Does Australia have a say? So, does Australia have a say? It doesn't. So, the idea of you will think PNG will learn from it, I just don't see that. I just don't see that. And the same mistake Philippines is making. They already made it. It's too late for Philippines, in my opinion. What do you guys think? Can Philippines reverse course, in your opinion? Or let me rephrase that question. Will Marcos Jr. have the guts to stand up and reverse course? What do you guys think? Let me see some of your comments here. And I'm going to talk about the history or historical aspects between PNG and Indonesia to put this in perspective for you. Okay, let's see what you guys wrote here. Just to have a better understanding of where things are, especially now, and again, I just look at it. I look at it like uh, long term impact for Indonesia. Short term is China. Long term is Indonesia. And of course, who's going to be end up holding the end of the stick is PNG. That's how I see it. All right, let me move quickly here to address the historical aspect here. So, but again, you have to put this within the context of the tensions between Indonesia and PNGs, which have grown. And why is this? Because it has to do with the West Papuan conflict, which destabilized the border region. And of course, anytime you have a disruption to the borders, what you're going to be seeing? Massive flow of refugees and cross-border incursions. That's usually what you will see. So here's the thing. And again, I'm going to provide brief history going back to 15th century, but briefly, but also we're going to start with 1986. In 1986, what happened? It was a friendship treaty that was signed between the two countries, PNG and Indonesia, because Indonesian military won in after the tensions that arose at that time. And the deal or the friendship was signed by both sides to settle the conflicts peacefully. And they were able to do that. But again, you have to also understand the PNG's old history. So, well, first of all, how it's all started. Some 50, the brief research I did, I found that some 50 or 60,000 years ago, that's where the first inhabitants were on that land, and they were coming from Southeast Asia. And was that during the Ice Age, way back? Yeah, it was way back. So New Guinea, that's how it was known back then, one of the first landmass, by the way, after Africa and Eurasia, to be populated by modern humans, and had its first migration that happened to about the same time as none other than Australia. Because if you think about who the original people in Australia, the indigenous people, which, by the way, we've seen the same what took place in the US with the Indians, Aborigines, of course, in Australia, and in Canada with the indigenous people. And we all know what these three governments did, in addition to the Brits, in addition to the French, in addition to the Germans, when they went to these parts of the world and did what we all know, the dark history of it. So and here is how it started back then for them. It was the idea of, like, for example, the what you call them? I draw blank, guys. I couldn't think of a word. A researcher, but it's not researchers. The ones who ventures out in the world. Yeah, you call them colonialist or imperialist. But back then, it was a number of Portuguese and Spaniard navigators. That's the key word. Navigators back then. They were sailing into the South Pacific in the early 16th century. Were probably the first European to sight PNG. And at that time, based on the research that I found, it was a guy by the name Don Jorge de Menezes. Don Jorge de Menezes, a Portuguese explorer. Those are the words, explorer. And he is the one who was credited with the European discovery of the principal island of New Guinea, which was around 1526, 1527. Now, There were other Europeans who visited and explored New Guinea island for the next 170 years from that time forward. So, but between that, after that, PNG, Papua New Guinea, kept to itself basically till the late 19th century. That's where things changed. Why is that? Early European settlements of Papua and New Guinea started. You know, this is why I gotta show you the map here, guys. So you'll see this one here. And I don't know, it's not visible as I was hoping, but this is where the northern half of Papua New Guinea came into the German hands in 1884 as German. It was called German New Guinea. So with Europeans' growing need at that time, a growing need for none other than coconut oil. This is why Indonesia is known. As a matter of fact, Indonesia export massive amount of coconut oil. It's well known. It's that's part of their economy. Let alone what the European did to both Indonesia and Malaysia, squandering their resources because they didn't want those countries to develop. That is the reason. So in 1884, Germany, take this guy, look, listen to this, guys, formally took possession of the northeastern quarter of the island and put its administration in the hand of a chartered company. Well, what was the reason for that? To maintain both the political, or to have control over the resources and the political. So in 1899, the German imperial government at that time assumed the direct control of the territory. Yeah, completely. Thereafter, known as the German New Guinea. That was the term why it was named back then. Fast forward to pre-World War I, 1914. Australian troops occupied German and New Guinea, and it remained under Australian military control until 1921. What happened after that? The British government, on behalf of guess whom? On behalf of the Commonwealth of Australia. This is why Australia has no sovereignty. Still till today, they have to sort of bow to King Charles because that's their leader. The Prime Minister, Al Boyd, just a figurehead. They all, I'll give an exception to one guy, to my knowledge, based on the research. The former President, Paul Keating, which I hope one day I get a chance to interview him. I will have a fascinating conversation with him. Well-spoken, well-articulate, and well-informed individual. That's the only one I can, at least based on what I read throughout the history of Australian government. The rest, especially the latest one, the current ones, are useless. They're figurehead, no more, no less. So on behalf of the Commonwealth of Australia, assumed the mandate from, guess from whom? Not Britain, from the League of Nations for governing the territory. So you're asking an international organizations to give you authorization to take over another territory. And that's where the territory of the New Guinea emerged back in 1920. That mandate itself was administered by the Australian government until the Japanese invasion in December 1941 brought about its suspension following the surrender of the Japanese in 1945. So Japan's history is no good either. This is why I kind of had to do that video for you about dumping the nuclear waste in the ocean. The Japanese government knew about all this, And the thing is, the fact they donated the 1 million euros to the IEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, to sort of manipulate the report. This is why I always say, especially with scientific communities, they can go both directions depending on who's funding the research. It's no different. Japanese basically wants to kill humanity, for that matter, destroy it with the blessings of the West. because that's what it means. If that wastewater is not as contaminated, why don't you use it for you inside Japan? Use it for farming. You can just see. So anyway, 1945. So the civil administration of Papua as well as New Guinea were restored. And under, this is where the new term came up, Papua New Guinea, PNG, Provincial Administration Act of 1945-1946. Papua and New Guinea were combined in an administrative union to become the country of Papua New Guinea, or PNG. So most of us here in the US will even under, let alone, I'm not putting down my fellow Americans, but we won't even know where it's located to begin with. So on November 6th, 1884, here's the interesting thing, just to go back. A British protectorate was proclaimed over the southeastern coast of New Guinea at that time. So that's what I found very, very interesting. British had their hands in every parts of the world. That's how they amassed all that massive gold and these diamonds, water, all that stuff doesn't belong to Britain. And for them to do the right thing, is I hope King Charles is watching this video. It's unlikely, but you never know. If he is, do the right thing. You will be remembered in history when you're gone. Do the right thing and return the stolen gold and diamonds to the rightful owners. That's, to me, what a decent person will do. Wealthy or not, rich or not, kings or not. That's the right thing to do. I have my doubt. So, as a matter of fact, there was a picture circulating. He was doing the nightly hood. Come on, man. It's not a 19th century. We passed that. They're still living in that mindset. But again, it's their country. The British people love that, like that. It's their country. I'm not judging them. So I'm just sharing information. No more, no less. So 1975, fast forward, that's where the legal system for the independence entered into effect. And this different in legal status meant that Papua and New Guinea had entirely separate administration, both controlled by Australia. Yeah. So the elections of 1972 resulted in the formation of a ministry headed by none other than the Chief Minister, Michael Somare, who pledged to lead the country to self-government and then to independence. So PNG became self-governing on December 1st, 1973, and achieved independence on 16th of September, 1975. Right after that, once you become a sovereign state, you join the UN. It joined the UN on October 10th, 1975, by way of Security Council Resolution number 375 and the General Assembly Resolution 3368. That's when it becomes. So it's very, very interesting how understanding history is always very crucial. So because since independence, since 1977, the national elections confirmed Michael Somare as the PM, as the head of the government, the coalition government, not the government, coalition government, led by the Pango Party at the time. But his government lost the vote of confidence in 1980. In 1980, that's when he lost, and he was replaced by the new cabinet headed by none other than Sir Julius Khan as a prime minister. So the interesting aspects as to why I disclosed in the recorded video about Peter O'Neill, because Peter O'Neill played a role when he became prime minister. in 2011. That is why he voiced his concern as to why PNG will be losing its sovereignty. That is the reason why. So just to summarize all this for you guys, you have to understand the historical ties between Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. Then you have to understand the geopolitical or security arrangements that now Papua New Guinea is going to have to fall under, because there will be security arrangements dictated by the United States. Papua New Guinea will have no say. It's no different than Philippines. It's sad reality, but it is. They agreed to it. So, I mean, once again, look no further than Australia. Look no further than whole Europe, for that matter. It's a reality, harsh reality. All right, let me see a question or two, and I'm going to sign off on this, guys. By the way, just type in, let me see where you're joining me from. I mean, I can tell some Latin Wu from Europe, Jack Rabbit from UK. There are a few names. Boone from Berlin. So there are names that I recognize already. And please, if this is your first time landing here, please make sure to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. So, all right, let me see if there's a question or two here, and I'll answer them if I have the answer. If I don't, I'll tell you I don't have an answer. I don't make up things as I move along. Oh, Boone, thank you so much for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it. The real problem in the West is that they are letting their internal politics affect their foreign affairs. No logic and no continuity. Cheers. Thank you so much. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of Boone's statements? Yeah, just leave some comments, please. Because, and again, this is what this community is all about, guys. We're going to exchange ideas. That's, to me, again, why I read those comments. I'm learning from that. And those are logical statements. It makes perfect sense. The reason why you're seeing, as an example, the idea of encircling China, which we all know it's not going to work, but because it's a reflection also of what we're doing internally here in the US. We are coming up soon on presidential elections. Things only going to escalate, because now voters is going to be manipulated into seeing who is going to be the toughest on India. You all heard on China, I'm sorry. Because we all heard, what's her name? Nikki, whatever, Haley wants to run for president. She's not qualified. One, she does not have any depth whatsoever. And third, she's just spewing lies about China and saying, oh, we need to fight China. You can just tell. It's just appealing to the voters who do not understand the ins and outs of what geopolitics is all about. So thank you so much, Boone, for sharing this statement here. All right, let me move on here and see. TNT, good to see you, man. India needs to leave BRICS. I am starting to see that. Wait until I release the video on the big channel. I did analysis about it. Why India will not be a superpower. It will not, no matter what you hear. There are some obstacles that still exist till today, and I spelled them all in that video. So make sure you guys, when you get a chance to watch it in its entirety. I also want to give you a heads up about the course I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing a course live. You check that out on the big channel, because it's coming up soon by the end of the month. So just check it out if you are interested. And I will be talking about even the stuff I can't talk about here. We all know censorship is real. So good to see you, TNT. Okay, I'm scrolling down here and see if there are a question. And by the way, guys, like I always say, thank you so much for keeping it civil. I truly appreciate it. Truly, truly appreciate it. Yeah, I will be exploring that topic of India now, entering into an arrangement with the United States regarding the naval assets. which we all know what it means, at the same time is really sending the wrong message, to other countries who now wants to join BRICS. Because if India is playing, you can't do that. Yes, I understand about your interest, national interest, but not in that manners, not in that fashion. I just don't get it. Don't get it. Maybe BRICS is gonna have to decide. Uh, Already, the conversation is circulating about it is time to replace India. It is time, and some have suggested Indonesia. This is why Australia is keeping an eye, believe it or not, as part of the Five Eyes, is keeping an eye on Indonesia, because they're seeing where the economy of Indonesia is going because of its trade with China. So they want to undermine Indonesia one way or another. This is the long term of this deal between PNG and the US. That's the way I see it. So, all right, I'm scrolling down just to see if there are any questions here. No. Oh, TNT, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Dr. Dave, I really catch you live. What are your thoughts about Turkey? Seems they have betrayed Russia. I'm keeping an eye because Turkey just mentioned the condition under which they will allow Sweden to be admitted to NATO to become number 32. But they didn't disclose that yet till the meeting between between Erdogan and the Prime Minister of Sweden, Kristersson, Ulf Kristersson. Yeah. And I said this before. Turkey, it's the stability of thinking in geopolitics that a country will stand its ground. Yeah, the principles are good, but they're going to be thinking in terms of what they can get out of it. And yes, they could be perceived as betrayal. Russia might not even interpret it that way, because Russia understood. Whether Sweden is in NATO or not is irrelevant, because Russia can level Sweden in no time. It's no different than Finland. It's no different than other Eastern Europe, and it's no different than for whole Europe, for that matter. And this is where the concern. And I'm gonna be watching for the statement, the final communique for the summit tomorrow and the following day of NATO. So yeah, Turkey is kind of, to me, shows they couldn't extend either this or that, which shows how opportunistic they are, politically speaking. Because if you want to get something for you at the expense of your friend, ally, whatever, what does it say about you? I understand in international or global affairs, it's all about national interest, but there are a point where you draw the line. It's like, for example, what Indonesia did when the G20 summit. It was pressured by the West, and they said, no, we're going to maintain our position. And that led me to also question Singapore, why they want to head with the sanctions for. So I don't know. I'm waiting to see the read up on that meeting, and it will be interesting to see. And I will say something about it once I read that and sort of analyze it to make sure my analysis falls in line with what they are trying. So thank you so much, TNT, for your super sticker. I truly appreciate it. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to sign off here because I'm going to go finish a few other things for this week as far as some topics and all that. And this is the reason why I do this kind of topics, because I want to keep the community informed. That's the objective for it. So grow it bigger. And of course, the more people join in, the better they become informed, because I tackle global affairs. That's the whole world. And those issues, like I always say, will impact you one way or another, no matter what. So I appreciate you guys for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time. As always, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time. Bye-bye.